Hi, welcome to Sugar Crash. My name is Dr. Kelsey Keene, and I want to welcome you to this Max Living Advanced Workshop. Our mission here is that we want to empower families and people to live longer, healthier lives through chiropractic care and the integration of the 5 essentials of health. And so you're going to learn more about that today. Now, one of the biggest reasons why we talk about this workshop called Sugar Crash is that it's important that people understand that sugar is, and our consumption of sugar is directly related to the increase in diabetes in this country. Just last year, the Centers of Disease Control showed that more than 30 million Americans have diabetes currently. And almost a quarter, 1 in 4 of those people with diabetes don't even know that they have it yet. Now that's 30 million Americans. Almost 3 times as many Americans are considered pre-diabetic. Pre-diabetic, if you or someone you know has ever been diagnosed with that, it's a condition that if it's not treated, if you don't get the blood sugar levels down, within 5 years you will be diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. Diabetes is a serious condition. It can often be managed through physical activity, diet, and appropriate control of blood sugar levels. People with diabetes are at an increased risk of serious heart and health complications, including premature death, vision loss, heart disease, strokes, kidney failure, even amputation of toes, feet, or a leg. And the rates of diagnosed diabetes increase with age typically. And a lot of that has to do with how much sugar we've been consuming over our lifetime, creating what's called insulin resistance. So what is all this about sugar, right? I know I'm the bad guy talking about sugar, and a lot of people aren't really excited to talk about this, but it is really necessary because not only does high sugar intake increase our risk of diabetes, but many other conditions as well. So weight gain. A lot of people think that if you want to lose weight or you want to avoid gaining weight, that you need to avoid fat in your diet. But the fact is that especially in America, we don't have a fat issue in our dietary needs. We have a sugar issue, an excess of sugar that's creating weight gain. We often say fat doesn't make you fat, sugar makes you fat. It's our body's inability to burn fat for energy as a result of the increased sugar in our diet that creates this obesity epidemic and excess weight. We also know that heart disease is associated with increased sugar, the silent killer. High sugar diets can lead to obesity, inflammation, and high triglyceride blood sugar increases, and blood pressure levels will increase with sugar intake. All of those things are a risk factor for heart disease. Consuming too much sugar, especially from sugar-sweetened drinks, has been linked to atherosclerosis, a disease characterized by fatty artery clogging deposits. In fact, there's a study in the archives of medical science that demonstrated that metabolic syndrome, which is associated with type 2 diabetes and coronary heart disease, that it is a consequence of a diet high in carbohydrates and foods high on the glycemic index, particularly with increased consumption of fructose. And that compared to diets that are high in cholesterol and saturated fat, it's actually the high carbohydrate, high sugar that leads to that metabolic syndrome. We obviously know that diabetes, our chances of diabetes increase greatly based on the amount of sugar that we're consuming. Too much sugar can lead to obesity, insulin resistance, and inflammation, and those are risk factors for cancer. So eating a lot of sugar actually increases your risk of cancer. And if you want to dive deep into this, you'll find out that cancer cells have 2 to 6 times the amount of sugar receptors on their cell walls compared to our regular healthy cells. And that when you consume sugar, it feeds cancer first. And so if you want to be a cancer killer, we have to avoid these high added sugar types of meals, because what it's doing is fueling, it's like gasoline on a fire to cancer cells. And if you want more information on that, just look up a DEXA scan. It's often done with patients who we're expecting, or we think they have cancer. So they will actually consume a type of sugar that's radioactive. They'll drink that, and then they'll put them through this DEXA scan, and you actually see where that radioactive sugar goes right to the cancer cells, and you see it light up, and you can tell where the tumors have spread or grown. And that's just one factor that really proves how much cancer loves sugar. Depression can be increased with your sugar intake. Researchers believe that blood sugar swings and neurotransmitter dysregulation and inflammation may all be reasons for sugar's detrimental impact on our mental health. There was a study by UCLA scientists that found that consuming fructose significantly impaired our memory. There's other studies that link glucose disorders like diabetes with accelerated decline in global cognition and our brain volume. We know that what you eat affects how you think. My mentor actually did kind of an experiment with us when he was really teaching us how important controlling our state of mind is, and that our mental state is affected by more than just being focused on what you're thinking, how you move, what you eat, what you consume, meaning like TV shows you watch or books you read, that all of that can affect your mental state. And so during this particular morning, one morning we woke up and we exercised, and we had some free range eggs and fruit and like a really healthy breakfast. And then we, read books that were fueling our mind and our passion and got us excited for the day. And then we went off and like tackled our day, right? And then the next morning, without him telling us that he was teaching us a lesson, he took us to Panera Bread, and he said, I don't want you to get anything healthy here. I want you to actually get donuts, pastries, sugary coffee drink, whatever you want, go for it. And I don't want you to think about health at all. So we took that opportunity and we had all the bad food, all the pastries. And following that, we had a meeting, and everyone in the room was completely lethargic, not into working that day, definitely didn't feel like saving the world and being on mission for our purpose. And he said, I want you to remember how you feel right now, because what you put in your mouth will affect your mental state and affect how effective you are in this life and fulfilling your purpose. And so that lesson really never left me. And we're seeing in research that same things, that, what you eat affects how you think, it affects your mental state. We also know that increasing fructose intake has been researched to be a risk for dementia. Persistent inflammation has been shown to contribute to common mental disorders. So it's the inflammation that's created by consuming sugar that really affects our mental state. Obviously, low energy is a result of having really high sugary, high glycemic loads in your food. And this was an example of like what I was just telling you with my stories after having all the pastries, really seeing that our energy level crashed. And the reason why is you have these high sugary foods, and it causes a spike in our blood sugar. And then when you have that blood sugar crash, that's when you're going to feel your energy levels just bomb. Fatty liver disease. Did you know that there's such a thing as a non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, also called NAFLD? It's a condition in which excess fat builds up in the liver, and it's caused by too much sugar in your diet. If you have been diagnosed with fatty liver disease and you are not an excessive alcohol drinker, you can heal. And I have seen it in my own practice. One person was a 17-year-old boy, which, believe it or not, had been diagnosed with fatty liver disease. And within 2 months of following our nutrition plan, His blood tests were coming back normal, and that diagnosis of fatty liver disease could not be found on any tests. Skin and cellular aging is affected by our sugar. Have you ever heard of something called AGEs? AGE, AGEs. It stands for Advanced Glycogen End Products. Basically, sugary foods increase the production of these AGEs, which are proteins or lipids that become attached to sugars. And they can be a factor that accelerates our skin aging and wrinkle formation. In addition, too much sugar can accelerate the shortening of our telomeres, which help to protect the end of chromosomes and deterioration. And that is consequently increases our cellular aging. So what you eat will affect your skin and how well you age, if it's gracefully, or if you look much older than you actually are. Acne can be affected by sugar. It increases androgen secretions, oil production, and inflammation in the skin. All those things can increase your risk of acne. That's why, by the way, if you have skin issues, changing your diet can radically change that for you. Among all those other chronic issues that we've just been talking about, high sugar intake is also associated with numerous other very detrimental health issues, like increased kidney disease risk, negatively affects our dental health, cavities and tooth demineralization caused by sugar. We know you have an increased risk of developing gout when you're consuming high amounts of sugar, and then even accelerated cognitive decline and increased risk of dementia are seen with high sugary foods. So, what is a lot of sugar? How do you know if you're consuming too much sugar? One really good standard is to learn what the American Heart Association has put out there as the limits for added sugar in the foods you're eating. And when you pay attention to this and you actually start looking at how much added sugar you're getting in your meals every single day and add that up, you're going to be shocked. So, what's too much sugar? The American Heart Association says men, you should consume no more than 37.5 grams of added sugar, which is the equivalent of 9 teaspoons of sugar. Women, I guess we're already so sweet, so obviously we need a little bit less sugar than the men. But women, according to the American Heart Association, our upper limits of added sugar should be 25 grams, which is equivalent to 6 teaspoons of added sugar. So remember these numbers. This is a writer downer. 37.5 grams of added sugar for men a day, and for women, 25 grams of added sugar a day. So put that into perspective. If you consumed one 12-ounce can of Coke, that contains 8 teaspoons of sugar. So right there, women, we've already blown our daily allowance of added sugar. And you think, well, I just won't have any more sodas the rest of the day. But there's added sugar in nearly everything we're eating, unless we're only eating real whole foods, nothing that has anything ingredients of sugar in it. I'll explain more in just a second. A regular size Snickers bar contains 5 grams of sugar. Shockingly, or not shockingly, the average American consumes 22 teaspoons of sugar a day, and that is the equivalent of 156 pounds of sugar in a year. If you look at a graph over the last 200 years of how much sugar us Americans have been consuming, it's on an exponential growth rate. You actually just see it go just like this as you're seeing as the years go by, we consume more and more sugar, and it shouldn't be any surprise to us why we're seeing so many health issues and an increase in type 2 diabetes. But I don't eat sugar. I don't eat sugar. I don't like sweet things. I never eat sweets. These are things that people tell me when I talk about why they need to know about sugar. I mean, I get it. I am a sugar addict. It is tough. I've had to go through many detoxes from sugar, and I still have to do it on a regular basis. Otherwise, you just slowly need more and more sugar, and then you realize things have gotten out of control. I have found that the more that I learn about this, the more that I keep this on the forefront of my mind, the more books I read or seminars like what you're listening to me say right now, the more that I'm involved in that, the more that it creates conscious thoughts for me to avoid the sugar and make better choices. So I just want to encourage you that if this feels a little overwhelming for you, just today, you're going to do the best that you can. And you may not be perfect, but tomorrow you're going to be a little better than today. And the day after, you're going to be a little bit better and a little better. And just don't give up and stay focused on it. Okay, so you may not be thinking that you're consuming a lot of sugar, but here are some examples of very high sugary foods that you might be snacking on daily. So obviously candy bars. Candy is going to have a lot of sugar. You know, if you have a Twix bar, you're like 0.2 grams away, ladies, from hitting your daily limit. That's just one. You know, a Three Musketeers bar is 60 grams of sugar. I mean, it's crazy amounts. But yogurt, you know, a lot of people would choose yogurt because they think that it's healthy. Well, some yogurts can contain as much as 6 teaspoons or 29 grams of sugar in a single container. Even whole grain breakfast bars, which somebody would purchase, maybe not because they really like them, but they just think that it would be a healthier breakfast to have on the go. But those whole grain breakfast bars, they can contain as much as 4 teaspoons or 16 grams of sugar in just one bar. So you're already starting out nearly, you know, half of your limit for the day of added sugar. What about cereals? Obviously we know, you know, some of the sugary ones like Cocoa Krispies are going to have a lot of sugar. They have 7.8 teaspoons of sugar per serving, and nobody just has one serving of cereal. I would like to add, your one serving of cereal is actually more like 4 if you look at what a serving size is. So, you know, Cocoa Krispies, yeah, it has almost 8 teaspoons of sugar, but Raisin Bran has 6.3 teaspoons of sugar. You know, we see things like Wheaties has 3 teaspoons of sugar. Honey Nut Cheerios has almost 7 teaspoons of sugar. So you're getting added sugar in almost all the processed cereals that you're eating. Fruit is high in sugar. That's why people like fruit. It's sweet, right? And it's not that fruit is bad for you, right? I always classify nutrition as, is that a God food or a man food? And if God made it, there's benefits for us to consume. And I think that vegetables and fruits is something that he provided us to eat, right? But fruit by itself in its whole form is not the same thing as consuming like fruit juice, right? Fruit's good, yes. There was a doctor, Dr. Robert Lustig, he's quoted saying, when God made the poison, aka sugar, he packed it with the antidote, meaning that whole fruits, they come packed with fiber, with water, and with other nutrients, not just the fructose. And then that makes a big difference on how it affects your hormones, your blood sugar, and inflammation in your body. So when you're consuming fruit, just know, eat the whole fruit. Don't just do the juice. Orange juice, apple juice, it's nothing but sugar. And the very small benefits of some type of vitamin C or nutrient you may get in that juice don't outweigh the impact that it will have and the detrimental effects of raising your blood sugar so quickly. All right, so what is added sugar? You need to know what to look for. We really empower our patients to be ingredient readers, you know, not to be fooled by the packaging and any kind of marketing that tells you something is healthy. You're gonna actually flip that sucker around and you're gonna read what are the ingredients, and that makes you an empowered consumer. So why is sugar added in food? Well, that's pretty self-explanatory. Sugar is added to food to enhance its flavor, to enhance its texture, shelf life. There's other properties that it's added for. But a lot of times it's just so that you really like it and you go back and buy more, right? To avoid accidentally consuming a lot of sugar, it's going to be wise to look out for the following names of sugar in your ingredient list. So First step, read your ingredient list. Second step, look out for these things. So there's types of sugar. You may want to write these down as I'm going over them. Beet sugar, brown sugar, buttered sugar, cane sugar, castor sugar, coconut sugar, date sugar. Are you seeing a theme? If it ends in sugar, it's sugar, right? No. Golden sugar, invert sugar, organic raw sugar, still sugar. Evaporated cane juice is sugar. And confectioner sugar, it's sugar, right? So those are pretty easy. You probably could guess that those were sugar. But there's also types of syrup that is sugar. So carob syrup is sugar. Golden syrup, high fructose corn syrup, one of the worst sugars. Honey is a sugar. It's a sugar, guys. Agave nectar, malt syrup, maple syrup, oat syrup, rice bran syrup, rice syrup. All those things are sugar. And then other added sugars. One thing that we learned in school is that if it ends in ose, O-S-E, that it is classified as a sugar. But you don't always see that in the ingredient list. And I think a lot of times it's because manufacturers don't necessarily want to draw attention to the fact that they have a lot of added sugar. So you may know some of these names and some of them you may not. Barley malt, it's sugar. Molasses, cane juice crystals, but it's just the crystals. Is that sugar? Yes, it is. Lactose, that's a milk sugar. Corn sweetener, crystalline fructose, dextrin, malt powder, ethyl maltol, fructose, remember the ose name? Fruit juice concentrate, galactose, glucose, disaccharides, maltodextrin, maltose. Those are other names for added sugar. And, don't be fooled by things that are said to be healthy sugars. All sugars are going to have an effect on your health. And so you want to be aware of it and not necessarily think that one is a get out of jail free card, have as much as you want. Agave for a while had its moment where people believed that agave was like a healthy sugar to consume. But agave nectar contains 70 to 90% of fructose and 10 to 30% glucose. Just read the effects of straight fructose on your body and how that affects you, and you will want to avoid agave. It really spikes your blood sugar really quickly and really high. It's no better than any other sugar. Coconut sugar, it's 70 to 80% sucrose, and half of sucrose is fructose. Just another name for sugar that you would want to avoid. Even honey, guys. If you're going to sweeten something, a lot of times I'll sweeten things with dates. That's a whole fruit that has a very sweet nature to it, and you can use that to sweeten things. Sometimes people will use honey, like in paleo recipes, rather than adding like cane sugar. And there are some health benefits to consuming honey. But let's not forget that honey is sugar as well. 40% of the weight of honey is fructose, and half of that is also sugar. And although honey is natural and has health benefits to it, just remember that it's protected by, 1,000 stingers, technically. Honey is for bees. It's not necessarily for people. So maybe it's better than white sugar, cane sugar, but you should be sparingly with any of these things, right? I'm such a bad guy, bringing you all the bad news. Today we're going to learn about what lifestyle changes you can make today to lower your sugar intake and reduce the risk of many common chronic conditions associated with blood sugar imbalances. So this is a practical part where we're going to be talking about what you can be doing right away to make big changes. And we call them the 5 essentials of health. The first essential I'm going to talk to you about is nutrition. Now, in addition to balancing blood sugar, this nutrition approach can help with weight management and with disease prevention. So, I think everyone needs to be very aware of sugar and limit that as much as possible. But just know that it's not just about, preventing diabetes. It's losing excess weight you may have, and it's preventing lifestyle diseases that are coming your way. If you look at the risk associated with Americans, how can it not be you unless you make these changes? So we really recommend that you follow the advanced eating plan, Max Living. Here in our office, we have 2 different nutrition plans that we recommend to patients based on your goals and your needs. But really to avoid, to get your sugar blood levels in balance, the advanced eating plan is going to be the one that's best for most people, and you're usually going to do it for a short time. Not everyone can live on the advanced plan. Not everyone sees it as a lifestyle type of nutrition plan, but to get your levels balanced, that's the one to go for. So here's some ways you can help balance your blood sugar by controlling the amount and the type of carbohydrates you eat. So you want to eat lower carb veggies. Carbohydrates are not just sugar and breads. Vegetables are carbohydrates. Peas are carbohydrates. Beans are carbohydrates. And we want to do the low carb fruits. So raw, cooked, and roasted vegetables, low carb options like mushrooms, onions, eggplant, tomato, Brussels sprouts, zucchinis. All of those, eating those foods can help to balance your blood sugar, and they're also on the advanced eating plan. You want to eat a variety of greens. Go beyond your regular salad and try things like kale, spinach, chard. You want to replace your high carb and fatty chips with things like roasted kale leaves. Have you ever had kale chips? You can put them on a low heat in your oven, or you can make them in a dehydrator at your kitchen. It gives you that crunchy, savory type of taste that would replace your chips. You can also mix in greens with your roasted veggies, and that adds a different texture and different flavor. You can serve them with a little protein like salmon. All these things are going to help you to regulate and keep your blood sugar normalized. And then you want to drink a lot of water, but not everybody loves water, and you want to mix it up a little bit. So, drink infused water. So you can add fruits or veggies to your water to make it more flavorful, more fun. Add things like lemon, berries, cucumbers, herbs like mint, spearmint. Those are great things to add into your water. And then you can keep full with a lot of like whole grain, high fiber types of foods. So this would be things like legumes, lentils, and peas. Those are going to keep you full longer because they're high in fiber. Also add healthy fats in replacement of unhealthy or trans fats. So you want to increase fats like olive oil, avocados or avocado oil, raw nuts like almonds or walnuts. And then make sure you're getting a good amount of protein. Protein is essential for your cells and muscles to repair from damage. So choose meats that are free of toxins so you don't add to our inflammation issue. Look for things like organic, free-range chicken, grass-fed beef, or wild-caught fish. All these things are going to help keep you fuller longer, keep your blood sugar stable, and help you to become more of a fat burner versus a sugar burner. Controlling cravings. Okay, I know it's easy to say, just reduce your sugar intake, but here's some ways to make your cravings for sugar easy to curb. You want to eat healthy protein-rich foods. I just talked about this, like meat, fish, eggs. Those are especially good for curbing hunger. Research shows that high protein diets have a significant role in improving appetite, body weight management, and cardiometabolic risk factors. You want to walk. Exercise releases endorphins, which are those feel-good hormones, those feel-good chemicals in your brain, and that can help you turn cravings off for sugar. So, when you are feeling those cravings and you're having a hard time giving up sugar, eat some protein, go for a walk. You also want to avoid artificial sweeteners. They trick your brain into thinking that you just had sugar, and often they release this cascade of hormones like insulin, even though you didn't consume the sugar. So it can have the same kind of effect on you. Plus, artificial sweeteners are chemical toxins that your body should have never been exposed to, and that are oftentimes shown to be an increased risk of things like diabetes and weight gain. Most people, I think, consume things like Splenda, aspartame, because they think because it's no calories that it will help them lose weight. But research is showing that it actually does the opposite effect, and it will keep you craving those addictive sugars. So just avoid the artificial sweeteners. Have a little bit of fruit to help you with your cravings. It's just enough to satisfy that sweetness that you're looking for, but eat the whole fruit. So some of the best fruits that are lowest on the glycemic index, so that means it has the lowest amount of sugar, would be berries. So anything that ends in berries, green apples, Granny Smith apples, grapefruit, all of those have a low sugar content, but really give you that satisfaction of eating something sweet. I love raspberries. It's one of the only fruits that I really love. It's definitely one of the only berries that I love. And to me, they're like gummy bears. So if I'm needing a little something, I'll go for that. Okay, now, probably everyone's favorite part of this slide, control your cravings by eating dark chocolate. It is true that dark chocolate can help you with your cravings. And what you're going to use that dark chocolate for is just to have a little bit to satisfy that craving, and you're going to limit yourself to a small square. I prefer Lily's chocolates because they are 100% cacao. They're slightly sweetened with stevia. They have all the benefit of cacao or cocoa and all the antioxidant properties, but it's not going to pump you up with sugar. But generally, dark chocolate is going to have the least amount of sugar. Dark chocolate technically has to contain 70% or more of cacao. And so that has phenols in it that is a important component for your health, and helps you satisfy those cravings. Now I want to transition into supplements that you could be consuming to help you with managing your blood sugar, losing weight, reversing diabetes, helping to reverse these lifestyle diseases that often come from consuming too much sugar. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is vitamin D. So most people have low vitamin D, and I've seen this firsthand clinically in my office. I have maybe can count a few people over the last 10 years who have come in who had their vitamin D levels checked, and they actually had adequate high levels of vitamin D where we want to see it. Having less than optimal levels of vitamin D can cause a host of problems. One study showed that supplementing with vitamin D for 12 weeks decreased body fat by 7% in overweight and obese women in this study. 12 weeks, 7% loss of body fat, and all they changed was consuming vitamin D3. Sounds like something everyone needs to add into their supplement regimen. Plus, we know that lower weight correlates with better blood sugar control. So it's a win-win: lose weight, better blood sugar control, all from vitamin D. Low vitamin D levels have also been linked with metabolic syndrome. It is best to aim for your vitamin D level to be somewhere around the 60 to 80 nanograms per milliliter. And that's what, when you go to get your blood levels checked, it's a blood test to see what your vitamin D levels are. You really want to see it between 60 to 80. Now, if you talk to your medical doctor or you get your blood test back, you could be considered normal in the normal range for vitamin D if you have a blood level that's 30. The normal range is considered between 30 to 100. That is a really large range to be considered normal. And the more that you research vitamin D, and I sure have seen this, is that you're going to realize that all the benefits of vitamin D, like decreased risk of a lot of the most common cancers and increased metabolism and protection from things like the flu, it all comes when you get your levels up past 60. So that's really where you want to go. Even if your doctor says you're normal because your level was 35, really want to get it up towards that 60 to 80 range. One study showed that vitamin D can act in the brain to improve glucose tolerance and insulin sensitivity, specifically in the liver. So if you or someone you know is diabetic or pre-diabetic, vitamin D3 can help you with that. The second thing I want you to know about is optimal omega. Not all fats are bad for you. In fact, fat is really good for you. It's actually a very big missing component to most Americans' diets. Now, Americans are eating plenty of fat, but they're not getting enough of the good fat. And that's why taking an optimal omega will help you with that. Omega-3 fatty acids can lower your risk of strokes and heart attacks. But these healthy fats, most prevalent in fish oil, also can convert the potentially harmful LDL, or very low density lipoprotein, VLDLs, which are linked to diabetes, and they can convert that into the less dangerous, considered good cholesterol, HDLs. So make sure you're taking a good fish oil and increasing your omega-3 fatty acids. It's also going to lower inflammation in your body. We know a lot of health issues come from an inflammatory issue. It could just be an imbalance of your omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. Next, Max GI. So why would you take something like digestive enzymes and probiotics to help you with blood sugar, to lose weight, and avoid diabetes and other lifestyle-related health issues? Well, let me tell you. Research shows that patients with diabetes have altered gut microbiomes. It's that good, healthy gut bacteria that really has a huge role in your immune system, in your mental health, because we know a lot of serotonin is made in the gut. But also for your immune system. It's said that 70% of the immune system is in the gut. And so not only do we see that patients with type 2 diabetes have a very unhealthy microbiome, but we know correcting that will help prevent a lot of other health issues. There was a study, a recent review of 12 studies that found that a multi-strain probiotic supplement may help with blood sugar and other issues related to diabetes. The study was done on people with type 2 diabetes and showed that taking a multi-strain probiotic, it affected their A1C numbers and fasting insulin levels, which those are a key measurement in glycemic control. So if you're diabetic or you know someone who is, making sure to take a probiotic like the Max GI, which also has digestive enzymes and other helpful things to a happy, healthy gut, that is going to be really good for you. And magnesium. Who takes magnesium? Love magnesium. Most Americans are deficient in magnesium and can cause a lot of health issues. According to research published in the medical journal called Circulation, in a group of nearly 5,000 people, those who took high levels of magnesium over a period of 15 years had a decreased risk of metabolic syndrome, a condition that's often a precursor to diabetes and is often, when you think of metabolic syndrome, you think of someone who is very overweight or obese. Also, they may have hormonal issues like thyroid problems. A similar study published in the American Journal of Epidemiology followed more than 1,000 healthy adults for 5 years and found that the greater magnesium intake that they had, the better their insulin sensitivity. So if you have type 2 diabetes, your insulin sensitivity is everything. The reason why we become diabetic is because we have a insulin receptor burnout. And if they can start becoming sensitive to insulin again, you can reverse diabetes. So consuming magnesium helps you with that. Other studies have shown that magnesium improves our triglyceride numbers and high blood pressure, two other hallmarks of metabolic syndrome. All right. Last but not least thing that you should add supplement-wise to help you with your sugar cravings and to help create a healthy body that's avoiding diabetes and losing any excess weight would be a grass-fed whey protein. Did you know that whey protein helps you stabilize your blood sugar? It's true. They even had a study that showed that when you added a whey protein, even to a high carb meal, people with diabetes kept their blood sugar levels under control just by eating their bad food, but also consuming some whey protein with their meal. Researchers found that drinking a whey supplement mixed in with a little bit of water with their high sugary meal, like mashed potatoes with meatballs, that it prevented that dramatic spike in blood sugar that normally occurs in people with type 2 diabetes. So if we want to get our blood sugar levels under control and avoid gaining weight, we want to keep those blood sugar levels stabilized. And consuming whey protein with your meal will help you do that. It also gets you full much faster, so you can get full on this good, healthy protein and not all the other foods. When you're consuming a whey protein, something that I always look for is I want to make sure that the cows ate what cows are supposed to eat, which is grass. Grass-fed cow versus a corn or grain-fed cow have different profiles in their fatty acids, and it can affect you completely differently. So the healthy one is going to be grass-fed. I'm also looking for a protein that doesn't have soy in it, that doesn't have artificials or added sugar into it. Almost every protein on the shelf you're going to pick up has tons of soy because it's a cheap filler that they can add into your protein mix, so they don't have to spend the money on whey protein. But they're also going to have sugar in it. And I'm consuming this whey protein smoothie as a way to try to avoid bad foods, typically. Why am I going to add aspartame, sucralose, or sugar in it? So you'll never see that in any of the Max Living proteins that we carry in the office, because we want to make sure you have the best quality ones. So consuming whey protein, it helps to attenuate or weaken blood sugar surges throughout the day. So if you started your morning with a protein smoothie using a whey protein, you're actually going to have less of those up and downs and cravings for sugary food. So I highly recommend. Now, whenever we do these workshops in office, we always add some type of benefit, or I don't know. We just want to shower our patients with a lot of gratitude for investing in their health and spending time in the office to learn about how to be healthy, because we're about results in this office. And patients that show up or listen to webinars like this, they're getting results in their health. So we incentivize them often. We have discounts on our supplements and products in the office on the day of our workshop. But for anyone listening today or watching this webinar, we're going to also incentivize you and show you our appreciation that you care about your health and you spent the time learning today. And we're going to do that this way. So we are calling this the Sugar Crash Bundle. If you want all of the supplements that are associated with the Sugar Crash workshop today, we're going to give you an unprecedented 20% off. So normally this bundle, which includes your grass-fed whey protein, your optimal omega, your vitamin D3, magnesium, and your max GI, 5 supplements, normal price for those would be $183.90. For the Sugar Crash participants, it's going to be 20% off, which will be $147.12. So you got a big savings there. And all you have to do is make sure you come in by the end of October 2018 and let Lindsay or Kirsten know the secret password, which is going to be Sugar Crash. When you tell them that, they'll give you the 20% discount just because you participated in this webinar and you're taking action for your health. Okay, now trying to avoid sugar while still enjoying social events with family and friends can be hard, but with the right mindset, it's not impossible to stick to your plan and still enjoy your life. So how do we do that? Well, here's a few tips that might help you, especially knowing that the holiday season is approaching really quickly. You're gonna have a lot of social engagements and things to go to. So this is another reason why Max Mind is such an important essential to the 5 essentials of health. It's important to stop the sugar crash, right? Max Mind is essential to good health because your mindset and coping skills for dealing with stress are important to your health. The Journal of Advanced Nursing study indicated that individuals Self-efficacy and ability to control their disposition were associated with one's well-being. So your mindset affects your well-being. You should probably know this already. And by the way, they did find in the study that avoidance coping, which I have been guilty of myself, avoidance coping is the strongest predictor of adverse well-being. So believe in yourself, and protect your mind and your disposition and your emotional responses, and that is associated with well-being. Stress can affect your blood levels. Did you know this? How can stress affect your blood levels? Well, hormones like glucagon and cortisol are secreted during stress, and these hormones can cause blood sugar levels to go up. One study showed that exercise, relaxation, and meditation significantly reduced stress and lowered blood sugar levels for students. So meditate, exercise, and make sure you're taking care of yourself and your mind. That's really important. Exercise and relaxation methods like yoga and mindfulness practice or mindfulness-based stress reduction can also correct insulin secretion problems in chronic diabetics, according to another study. So if you're diabetic, you want to avoid being it, make sure you're getting regular exercise, that you're doing things like yoga, and that has been shown to help you with your blood sugar control, with your stress, and we know that that's also going to help you make the best choices when it comes to your health. So how can you ever go to any social events and have a good time and live your life, but still be following, a nutrition plan that's avoiding sugar? Well, here's a few things that can help you take the focus off of food at social events during social activities, right? So don't go to an event hungry. That's really important. Eat something healthy, at least somewhat filling, before you go. That way you're less likely to be mindlessly snacking at the parties. Actually engage socially with somebody. I know we're not really good at that in 2018, but if your mouth is talking, you can't be eating. So, make sure you're connecting with people and enjoying that social engagement instead of just going somewhere to eat all of the good, delicious treats. You want to plan ahead. Focus on the activities rather than on the eating. Sit away from the food table as far as possible so you're not constantly smelling or thinking about the food. And you want to think about the place where you're going. Make a specific plan for what you're going to allow yourself to do. For example, plan to eat a good portion of protein, maybe one starch and lots of green vegetables. And with your plan, then you can acknowledge that you may have an urge to overeat, but you're not going to give in. Make sure you make a specific plan before the event and not when you have an empty stomach, because then your decisions aren't always so good, right? So buffets, they include a lot of different food. Take a look at the foods that are available before you get in line. See which foods are being served, which ones are whole foods, which ones are not processed, which ones are low in sugar. Fill up on high fiber foods like salads and veggies and whole grains, and take small serving sizes. Get a little bit of healthy fat in with your food if you can. Potluck dinners can be hard, but there is a lot of food choices at potlucks. If you bring something to potluck, just make sure you bring something healthy, and then you'll always have something to eat. And then, avoid alcohol. It's probably my least favorite thing to talk about on this list. But alcohol can interfere with our blood sugar levels and reduce the effectiveness of insulin. So if we're really trying to balance our blood sugar, we need to avoid alcohol as well. Exercise. This is another essential to a healthy life. There are a few ways that exercise can lower our blood glucose. Sensitivity is increased when we exercise. Your muscle cells are better able to use any available insulin or blood sugar and take up the glucose during times of activity. It shouldn't surprise you that we need to be moving our bodies more. When the muscles contract during activity, your cells are able to take up glucose and use it for energy, whether insulin is there or not. This is really good news for diabetic patients. So if you have diabetes, you need to be exercising daily. There's no question about it, because we know with diabetes, There's often insulin issues. Either your pancreas isn't making insulin, or your insulin receptor cells are non-compliant. They're not sensitive enough to detect the insulin and pull sugar out of your blood. But your muscles are so incredible that when you are working them out and you're actually exercising, whether you have insulin or not, it pulls glucose out of the blood. It's so cool. You have to exercise. Long-term regular activity can lower your A1C numbers. And if you're diabetic, you know how important that is. Minimizing our toxins. So although increased sugar consumption, obesity, and lack of exercise certainly contribute, the effect of environmental toxins may actually be a lot greater than just the food we're eating. This is going to blow your mind. The data is so compelling that some researchers are now labeling these toxins diabetogens, toxins that are actually creating diabetes, basically. So the research shows that environmental chemicals have a great deal to do with both diabetes and obesity. Now, there's something called persistent organic pollutants, or POPs. In 2006, there was a study that found that U.S. adults with the highest exposure to 6 kinds of POPs had 37.7 times the risk of diabetes of people with the lowest levels of exposure. So you heard me correctly, almost 38 times more diabetes because of the high exposure to these persistent organic pollutants. And these persistent organic pollutants include things like dioxins, DDE, oxychloridane, trans-nonachlor, and a lot of those last 2 I said, those are products of the pesticide chlordane. Now, you can look up more information for yourself. Just look up persistent organic pollutants and you can learn more about where they're at. Basically, everything in the modern world is contaminated with these POPs. They're sprayed on most commercially grown foods in America, and they have many industrial uses as well. They're found in pesticides, solvents, pharmaceuticals, and industrial chemicals. They're persistent, so they resist degradation. Do you really think that avoiding chemicals and buying organic is not important? And this is just one example of how we are killing ourselves with our toxic exposure. The more you can avoid them, the better. You can find them lurking in animal fats as well because they are fat soluble. POPs and arsenic are chemicals that are most strongly linked with diabetes by existing evidence. So avoid things that are high in arsenic, obviously, and avoid these persistent organic pesticides as much as you possibly can. Persistent organic pollutants. Air pollutants. There was studies in the US, Canada, and Germany, among several other countries, found that women and children exposed to higher levels of traffic-based air pollution had much higher rates of type 2 diabetes. Farm workers have high rates of type 2 diabetes, so we know pesticides add to that. Phthalates are chemicals used in plastic manufacturing. They're also found in cosmetics, perfumes, industrial paints, and solvents. These phthalates, not only can they mimic estrogen in the body and affect our hormones, but they're associated with diabetes and definitely associated with weight gain. Pretty much anything that's plastic, you're being exposed to phthalates, and we actually absorb them through our skin, as well as the things we're eating. And just one more reason not to be using plastics or using them as little as possible. And the most important essential to health is what we call core chiropractic. What does chiropractic have to do with sugar, blood glucose, diabetes? Well, it's actually more connected than you might think. More important than exercise, more important than nutrition, maintaining a healthy, balanced central nervous system is the most critical thing for somebody's health and well-being. This illustration that you see on the screen here shows how important the nervous system is. This is a fact. It is not a belief, it's a law, right? Just like gravity, the nervous system controls every single organ in the body It's comprised of our brain, our spinal cord, and the spinal nerves that exit that spinal cord. It's a law, just like gravity, that with gravity, you know, if I drop this pin, it will fall. The nervous system controls every organ, every cell of your body. You know, the reason I say it's more important than food is that, you know, what use is the best food in the world if the body can't digest, absorb, or assimilate that food? And all those things are controlled by your nervous system. That nervous system is the master system of the body. It's in every single function. It reflects the nervous system's activity is reflected in the function of the body. Nerve impulses will travel from the brain down the spinal cord and then out through the nerves to all the parts of the body. And then also, a lot of people don't realize that nerve impulses actually travel back up to the brain in return pathways. And this is also really important. There are in excess of 100 billion neurons or nerve cells in the human central nervous system. And the number of possible interconnections between all of these cells is greater than the total number of known atoms in the entire universe. That's how complex your nervous system is, and it's for good reason. The nervous system does much more than transmit sensory information to the brain or control motor functions like your muscles. It actually controls all of the organs of your body, including all of the biomolecular environment of the body. Central nervous system is involved in all disease conditions, as the central nervous system not only processes incoming physical and chemical information from the body, but actually controls organs and cells to maintain health and homeostasis. So the limbic system is the area of the brain that maintains homeostasis, and the hypothalamus is perhaps the most important part of the limbic system. It's the brain of the brain, so to speak. Without question, it's the single most intricate, complicated part of the brain. The hypothalamus is what controls your homeostasis. It does that by ways of feedback loops. So the combined neurological and endocrine function of that hypothalamus allows it to play a very prominent role in the regulation of numerous body functions. And controls our metabolism. So this is really where it comes into how it's affecting your blood sugar. To achieve the task of maintaining metabolic balance, the hypothalamus has to receive input about the state of the body, and it must be able to initiate compensatory changes as is needed. And so if your body isn't getting those normal signals to tell you what's happening in your body, your brain can't respond to, your hypothalamus cannot respond to create that homeostasis. So what can it control? What kind of things does it create homeostasis for? Hypothalamus uses our nervous system to regulate and integrate heart rate, for blood pressure, respiratory rate, digestion, emotional responses, for behavior, for sex drive, for body temperature, appetite, sleep cycle, blood sugar levels, metabolism, and many more things. When the hypothalamus senses any type of imbalance, it corrects it by one of two ways. It's going to send nerve impulses through the nervous system, down the spinal cord, out the nerves, that's the autonomic nervous system, or it's going to send endocrine or hormone signals to the pituitary gland. So the effectiveness of the hypothalamus to control metabolism and other functions is directly related to the functional capacity of the nervous system to be able to send and receive nerve messages, and especially to maintain the integrity of those nerve messages as they travel along the spinal cord. Subluxations, that's what a chiropractor identifies and corrects. Subluxations, they interfere with the normal flow of nerve impulse that can cause an increase or decrease of any type of nerve activity. That's why metabolic disorders are often related to imbalances of the endocrine system. It all comes back to the nervous system. There's a study that showed diabetic patients had defects in the signaling to the brain through the nervous system, and these were patients who did not have neuropathy. So we know that there is a connection there with diabetes and with an unhealthy nervous system as a result of subluxation of the spine. There was oral glucose tolerance testing that was performed on subjects who had spinal cord trauma, and the study concluded that patients with the greatest neurological deficit had the increased risk of developing disorders of metabolism. So unhealthy nervous system, metabolic issues. How do you know that you may need to see a chiropractor and that you may have nervous system disorders? Well, here's some warning signs. If you have headaches, if you have menstrual problems, if you have blood pressure issues, depression, numbness and tingling in your extremities, sciatic pain, low back pain, neck pain, dizziness, fatigue, acid reflux, food intolerances, allergies or asthma, ear infections, frequent colds, constipation, digestive issues, sleep problems, skin issues, all of those can be warning signs to an unhealthy nervous system, and that you should have your spine checked. If you are a guest, if you're not a current patient in the office and you are interested in coming in and learning more and getting your spine checked, my contact information is going to be at the end of this, and I would be happy to set that up so that you can have your nervous system checked, because it is very important. So, action steps as we wrap this up. If you haven't had your spine and nervous system checked, get them checked by a corrective care chiropractor, who's going to be able to evaluate your spine and see if there are subluxations that are affecting your health. Step 2, everyone needs to read Align Your Health and pay special attention to Chapter 4 and Appendix B. That's the Advanced Eating Plan. You want to start that Advanced Eating Plan this week and stay committed for the next at least 30 days. You're going to feel really good. You're going to be closer to hitting your goals. You may even want to be keeping it going more than 30 days, but just commit to those first 30 days at least and see how much better you're feeling, how much better you're functioning. So we have a few upcoming events. First, I want to tell you about connecting with us, actually, as I wrap this up. If you are not already a friend of the office on Facebook, you can find us at facebook.com/Keen Chiropractic. You can also email me any questions you have at drkelsey@gmail.com. If you need any of the cited material I went over today, I'm happy to provide that resource to you. And also you can hear me and the other Max Living doctors here of Austin. We have a radio show Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. It's called Max Life Austin on the Bridge. And you can find that at 101.1 FM or 11:20 a.m. I'm so happy that you joined us today for Sugar Crash. I hope you take action. I hope you see amazing results with your health. Remember, I'm here for you. And we'll see you again next time.